Hi again, and welcome to episode 3 of the Cordcast, where I talk about albums and EPs that I either missed or didn't make the cut on my list for this week. I just got back from work and I'm incredibly sunburnt, so let's blast through this episode right now, so I can go to bed. Before that, though, here are this past week's reviews, which are all available to read and link in the description. Boldy James and The Alchemist team up again for Bo Jackson. Benny the Butcher gives us a tease of Tana Talk 4 with his new EP, Pyrex Picasso. And Ka drops a surprise album for the masses, A Martyr's Reward. Well, that's it. Let's get into the reviews. The first album on the list is the new Lloyd Banks album, The Course of the Inevitable. After 5 years away from the limelight, Lloyd Banks returns to the mic over some of the typical East Coast beats that fans have come to know. He sounds just as gravelly as ever, but the tiny gripe I have with this album is that the mixing is a little off on these songs. That's the pretentious music guy in me talking, but out of pure enjoyment, this is pretty good and probably one of the better rap albums this year. I'd also like to point out that Rock Marciano's feature sounded like he went to an open mic night to perform his verse. The next album on the list is Marina's new release, Ancient Dreams in a Modern Land. I probably don't have to tell you how beloved Marina, formerly known as Marina and the Diamonds, is in the pop community, but for her third album under the Marina name, she's finally coming to her own with some pretty complex writing. I think that's the most standout part about this album. It's mature but playful, and pretty much every little juxtaposition and comparison of that, it's just damn good. Next is Troubled Paradise from Slater. This is the debut album of L.A. singer Catherine Slater. On the first few listens of this, I actually did enjoy it and thought it was one of the better hyperpop albums of this year. As I've listened more, though, I've realized that she may just be wearing influences on her sleeve too much. Then again, it's a debut album. I don't blame her for looking at other artists that she is operating in. Honestly, I do think that she could work on her sound a little more, and she could be up there as one of the greats. Either way, I just hope her career isn't just wearing her influences on her sleeve like that. Next up is Dean Blunt's latest effort, Black Metal 2. As the sequel to what's considered his best album by a mile, London singer Dean Blunt has some pretty big shoes to fill here. Luckily, it lives up to that hype. Even if it isn't a black metal album, Blunt's lyrics are honest and as, well, blunt as ever. It doesn't live up to the first installment, however. His personality and writing is still in fine form and is definitely worth checking out based on that alone. Now we have the new Garbage album, No Gods, No Masters. Garbage is a band that really doesn't have a lot to prove at this point. They're a damn good alt-rock group with a good workflow. They have their own label and they're currently operating independently. And they're just doing the shit that they really want to do. This shit happens to be really, really good too. I would really recommend it, and I think it's one of their better albums as a group. Next is the new Suicide Boys album, Long-Term Effects of Suffering. Look, Suicide Boys have been a group that I've been waiting to get into. I want them to create what they want to create, but most of all, I personally want to enjoy it. That being said, I didn't really enjoy this that much. That's probably why it's on this podcast and not a full review like I promised. Sorry about that, by the way. Either way, there was just so little content that I can't really talk about this long form, except about the fact that If Self-Destruction Was an Olympic Event, I'd Be Tanya Harding is a great name for a song. Next is YNW Melly's album, Just a Matter of Slime. Melly is currently in jail for allegedly murdering his YNW crewmate, but that doesn't stop him from putting out new music, somehow. Other than being just a great album title in general, Just a Matter of Slime is just a little blander than his past albums. He doesn't have any mixed personalities on here, he doesn't have any suicidals on here, and he certainly doesn't have any murder on my minds here. It's just more of Melly, but he doesn't take any risks that make his best songs and make him stand out in the crowd. The next one on the list is Ben Platt's Reverie. You know who Ben Platt is, and if I'm being totally honest, I had this whole paragraph written about how aggressively okay it is, so I'm just going to shorten it to that. This album is aggressively okay in every single aspect. On a side note, casting a 40-year-old as a high schooler among other teen actors is just weird, even if you originated the role you're playing. Next is the newest effort from The Armed, Ultra Pop. Looking at the cover art for this, you'd think that this was some clothing brand, marketing, or even like a fun pop album. It's not that. It's actually quite far from that. It's a noise, hardcore punk rock album that has pretty good musicianship from every member. I don't really know who any of these people are, but I'm definitely going to look into them because they have a new fan in me. Now we have Flu Game by AJ Tracey. UK hip-hop is something I need to dive more into, and since this was getting quite a bit of buzz, I decided to check this out. And if I'm being honest, this thing's just okay to me. There are a good amount of bangers on here, but it got a little repetitive as it went along. I get why it's such a hit, and I wish AJ Tracey the best of luck for his career, but this just didn't hit for me. Next is Sturgill Simpson's new album, The Ballad of Dude and Juanita. I've been a fan of Sturgill's other albums, especially Sound and Fury, mainly. But here, most of the songs seem like they're jokes or something. I don't really find it that appealing, but it has to appeal to somebody, right? I can appreciate the fact that most of his albums have pretty different sounds, but that's where it stops for me. This album did not click for me at all. Now we have Different on Levels the Lord Allowed by Dame Dalla. Oddly enough, Dame Dalla is the stage name for NBA superstar Damian Lillard. Admittedly, it was interesting to hear Lillard so passionate about a music career, and quite frankly, he doesn't sound half bad either. I think Right On's gonna be a hit, but overall, it doesn't feel like a realized artist to me. Now, this may just be a side project, and Lillard won't be coming back to this again. But if he does, I have one piece of advice for him. Treat it like you're playing basketball. Don't fall for traps. Finally, we have R.A.P. Ferreira's newest album, Bob's Son, R.A.P. Ferreira in the Garden Level Cafe of the Scallops Hotel. Milo's second release under the R.A.P. Ferreira name dropped on New Year's Day this year, and while fantastic beats are always a given for people involved in this, I enjoy just how arrogant and braggadocious Milo is on here. It may be a turn-off for some, but it makes for an album that I'm upset I went this long without listening to. And that is going to end this week's episode of the Cordcast. Thank you for listening. When it comes to written reviews and upcoming stuff, there's new content from Lorde, Deaf Heaven, Trippie Redd, Red Velvet, and the new album from Division and D.O.L.L.A. Like this video if you like it, and subscribe for more content like this. Now I gotta go find aloe vera because these sunburns are actually really starting to concern me. Have a good one.